This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity.
For too long, America's 28 million small businesses have been straining under the burden of an outdated, uncompetitive, and overly complex tax system. There is nothing more important we can do to support our nation's job creators than passing tax reform.
There will always be taxes, but they don't have to be so punitive. Give us an opportunity to grow our business and let us be able to reinvest.
Tax reform would allow us to reinvest in our infrastructure, purchase new equipment, and add employees.
We're making a profit. We're investing that money back into our business, back into our community, back into our employees, and that benefits everyone.
We want to hire more people. We want to grow, grow, grow. That can only happen with a bold tax reform plan.
It's time for Congress to do what these small business owners do every day. Roll up their sleeves and get the job done. America's job creators are counting on you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so beautiful. I thought we should be having class in the grass, but I guess this works better for all of us. Just a quick point of indulgence while I have the microphone. I want to thank our incredible building staff, our AV techs, our event planners. This room, about 30 minutes ago, was set for an amazing Sports Forward technology event we did all morning. We had a couple hundred people in here, and it looked completely different. And Neil Bradley laughed that he went out for a sandwich and came back, and it was like this. So thanks, team. It's amazing what you accomplish. Hi, everybody. I'm Suzanne Clark, Senior Executive Vice President at the Chamber. Welcome. We're very glad that you're here. You all know what a timely discussion this is about an issue that, as this video said, is crucial to job creators and to America's families. To help lead that discussion, we're delighted to welcome back to the Chamber our friend and partner on many issues, Chairman Kevin Brady of the House Ways and Means Committee. As you all know, the chairman has a lot on his plate right now, so we're glad he's chosen to spend some of his time here with us this afternoon. Chairman Brady has been one of the 6 principal tax reform negotiators over the past several months, building on years of work by his committee. And he will continue to play an integral role as tax reform now moves from the discussion phase to the legislative process. His committee, along with the Senate Finance Committee, has the important duty of building the framework that was released yesterday into a detailed reform package that simplifies the tax code, lowers rates for all businesses, and above all, drives growth for our economy. The Chamber strongly agrees with the chairman that pro-growth tax reform is the most important way that we can help mainstream job creators. Even so, when I look around the faces in this room, you know this well, this is going to be a major undertaking. It's why we're so pleased to have a partner who's not only bold and determined, but optimistic and visionary. That's the kind of leadership it's going to take to get this across the finish line. And we want you to know, Mr. Chairman, that you can count on the U.S. Chamber every step of the way. Like you, we've been preparing for this moment for years, and we've intensified our efforts over the past several months, mobilizing grassroots networks, bringing small business leaders to lobby their members of Congress, and going on the airwaves to highlight the urgency of tax reform. The business community was instrumental to this effort 31 years ago, and we will work tirelessly to achieve it again this time. So, without further ado, let me welcome our special guest, Chairman Brady.
Got her? Thanks. Suzanne, thank you very much. Not just for the invitation and the introduction, but thank you for the Chamber's leadership in so many issues so critical to our economy and our small businesses, local businesses, from trade to balanced regulation to the freedom for enterprise to operate in America, and especially on tax reform. This is a great organization. Tom and you have put together an amazing group. Had the honor of working with Neil Bradley in the halls of the House for many years, and it's wonderful to see you over here, Neil, leading such a critical, or helping lead such a critical organization. To Jack Howard and Ashley, to all of you who make this a great organization, thank you very much. I always like to remind people that my very first trip to Washington was for a U.S. Chamber of Commerce rally, a fly-in. I was head of government affairs for a local Chamber of Commerce, 23 years old, knew pretty much everything. As I get older, I find that's not the case. But, you know, that experience, being able to help start small businesses, helping create a good business climate, helping recruit industry and finding ways to grow your economy in a major way, that's what turned out what I love to do in life. And I've really been blessed in the Ways and Means Committee to be able to continue that work, maybe just in a little different forum. So look, this is a very exciting week for tax reform, and I'm excited to be here at the Chamber. Again, the members here have been so tremendously supportive of our effort on tax reform over the past several years, and not just from leading the charge, but the feedback you're giving us as we design what we hope will be the most pro-growth tax reform in history. And now you're making the case in a very articulate way. I also know not only are you good at policy, you're good at communications. In fact, the Chamber just brought on one of our former Deputy Press Secretaries, Catherine Cooksey. Where is Catherine? Back there. So you stole a good one from us, and she's going to be a great team. In fact, one of our communications efforts, Tax Reform Tuesday, where we hear from our members in real life with their local businesses, was Catherine's idea. So I won't be surprised if I see it on here at some point as well. So when I last spoke to the Chamber in January, just 3 days after President Trump's inauguration, you know, I talked about our bold vision for tax reform. And I told you we're committed to getting it done this year. And over these past months, the House and Senate have been working closely with President Trump and his team to develop a unified approach for tax reform that really is transformational for our country. And yesterday, with the release of the unified framework, I think we took a big step forward in making tax reform a reality for the American people and for all the hardworking businessmen and businesswomen like yourselves. And today I'd like to tell you how our unified approach will help America's middle-class families, how it will help our Main Street job creators and our global businesses, all of whom are fed up with the tax code we have today. Just think about it. We have some of the best and brightest workers in the world, yet America's paychecks have been stagnant for nearly a decade. We have some of the most innovative small businesses and entrepreneurs, yet fewer jobs, fewer storefronts, fewer startups are occurring across the country. And we as Americans, we've got a special type of grit and determination that truly does set us apart. We take pride in our work, and it shows in the fact that our American-made products often set the global benchmark for innovation and quality. Yet today we're seeing less made in America products hitting the market, and more of our businesses, our jobs, our research, our manufacturing, our headquarters moving overseas to countries with far more modern and far more competitive tax codes than ours. So if we want to unleash the vast potential of this nation through tax reform, I'm convinced we have to start by unleashing the individual potential of every American, by giving you the chance to put your talents into action, to build a better life for yourself and your family, by allowing you to pursue your American dream, whatever that may be, and make it a reality. So that's exactly what our unified approach for tax reform is focused on. And we have 3 key objectives I think that will make a tremendous difference for you, your family, and for the customers you serve. Specifically, tax reform is all about delivering more jobs, bigger paychecks, and fairer taxes. I'm excited to tell you a few of our bold ideas to deliver on those objectives for the American people. So let's start with the first one, more jobs. Under our unified framework, this begins by offering the lowest tax rates in modern history for American businesses of all size and all structures. We also lower rates for families. We flatten out the code from 7 brackets to 3, or more accurately, 0 plus 3 brackets. Rates for individuals and families will be lowered, like an elevator, all of them going down to 12, 25, and 35%. And the reason is simple. Every dollar of income that American families and businesses can keep and put toward their own American dream is a dollar that grows our local economy, that grows our jobs, that expands opportunity. And on the business side, our job creators and workers will no longer have to bear the burden of America's 35% corporate tax rate, the highest in the developed world. So, working with our business leaders in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, We're proposing to reduce that rate to 20%, the lowest in American history, so our businesses can compete and win anywhere in the world, especially here at home. It's a big change from today, where we're really beating ourselves by staying with this 35% rate. So looking at a recent study, we see a lot of them, but I saw a recent study the other day that really drives this home. The study looked at the past dozen years. It found out that if we had a corporate rate of 20% instead of what we have today, we would have kept 4,700 more companies here in the U.S. that have been either acquired or moved overseas. At the same time, our businesses would have brought in an additional $1.2 trillion, bringing it back toward the United States. But can you think about that? Our rate is so uncompetitive. We've lost nearly 5,000 jobs in foreign mergers and acquisitions that ought to be in our communities today. Just imagine if we have a modern tax code, what it can do for our communities and for our growth. So we've lost these companies, we've lost those jobs, and we've lost over $500 billion in American assets. Well, investment dollars would go a long way in our community. And as for America's small businesses, our framework says it's time you have a fair and competitive tax rate as well, a rate of no more than 25%. That means our Main Street job creators will no longer be taxed at individual rates as high as 40%. So after years of having to compete with one hand tied behind your back, our businesses, large and small, and all the American workers who make them run, will finally have a more level playing field where you can succeed and grow. And to better ensure these historically low rates translate into more job opportunities for middle-class Americans, to achieve that rate, we will have to jettison a number of special interest provisions for some, so we can lower rates on families and local businesses for all. We are looking hard at the carve-outs and deductions that encourage companies to invest where they can get a new and better tax break instead of where they can create a new and better job. We'll also be working to remove provisions that incentivize companies to send American jobs overseas by making our tax code one of the most competitive in the world. True tax reform really is about rewarding hardworking Americans, creating a level playing field, not just maintaining the status quo in every provision in this complex, costly tax code. It's also about growing our economy from the bottom up by offering the American people a better chance to find a well-paying job and start a fulfilling career, no matter if you're fresh out of college or if you just want to break into a new line of work. So that's the first objective. And that brings me to the second, which is bigger paychecks. You know, each of the bold ideas we are talking about today will help Americans grow professionally. But it's just as crucial our tax code helps grow their paychecks and standard of living along with it. Truly, our goal is to truly unlock the growth of paychecks nationwide. And to do that, we've got to unleash business investment in America. It's the missing ingredient, Peter, in our current recovery, which is far too slow. That's why for the very first time, our framework offers businesses the ability to fully write off purchases of new equipment they need, produce, and compete at a higher level in year one. And this bold reform, what we call full expensing, is one I'm really excited about. Look, we're not just making it easier and more affordable for businesses to invest in physical capital, like a new tractor, a new computer, a new technology and software. We're really making it easier for you to invest in human capital. Full expensing isn't about encouraging companies to buy stuff. It is encouraging companies to make the investment in the technology and equipment that drives the productivity of their workers and their business. That's what translates into higher paychecks, more successful businesses, and higher economic growth in the future. And as importantly, look, it helps your workers, it helps every American earn a larger paycheck, move up in the workforce, move up in the workplace, and even learn new skills that could benefit them in a future job. And then I'll finish with this, growing paychecks. We're finally moving the United States to a modern territorial tax system As you know, unlike the vast majority of our international competitors, we still force our global businesses to pay U.S. tax even on their foreign earnings. Those taxes come on top, but our companies have already paid in other countries. So today, the current tax code is making it so much more difficult for our businesses to compete globally. Our current tax code makes it much more attractive to keep foreign income abroad and invest it abroad as well. So we have a simple proposal. Stop doing that. Let's stop doing that. So it's past time we move to a 21st century tax system that really encourages our businesses to bring home profits they earn abroad, to invest in growing jobs and paychecks here in our communities. And now, look, our third key objective is just fair taxes. This is perhaps the most personal and maybe the most important goal we have. You know, it's about, for the first time in decades, having a tax code that respects the time and the take-home pay of all Americans, especially the middle class, especially our Main Street job creators. It's centered really about delivering a tax code that's simpler, less stressful, and more supportive of American families as they pursue what makes you happy in life. First, we're eliminating the current maze of special interest loopholes that benefit some but offer nothing but confusion for most families. We double the standard deduction to protect more of those first dollars that every family and every individual earns. We spare the vast majority of Americans the hassle of itemizing. We preserve family-focused provisions that help middle-class Americans with buying a home, with raising children, with paying for college and donating to your local church or charity or cause you believe in. And we're repealing the alternative minimum tax for both individuals and businesses. That means millions of families and job creators will no longer have to spend time and money calculating their taxes twice each year. And ultimately, this delivers a tax code so fair and so straightforward that 9 out of 10 Americans will be able to file their taxes using a simple postcard-style system, and it works. Finally, I want to make it clear, and this is one of the best parts of the tax code reform, I want to make clear we are dedicated to repealing the death tax. For the first time in over 100 years, owners of family farms and small businesses won't have to fear double or even triple taxation when they pass their life's work to the next generation. They'll have real peace of mind knowing that their families can keep building their businesses and growing their jobs and growing paychecks for families in the community. And I've seen this in my Chamber of Commerce work in 3 communities, how this hurts our local businesses. I have Roy Morton, who has a welding supply company in Conroe. He started with his brother and his uncle 40 years ago. They built it up in their community. They have 5 locations now, none of them in the good part of town necessarily. He's built this up. His son and grandson both work there. He's always planned to have to pay the death tax. But as you know, in one store, between the land, the building, the inventory, and the trucks and the oxygen tanks out back, you know, one store will hit the limit for a business like him. And what Roy Morton simply says is, look, I didn't build this business up for the government. I built it up for my family. Built it up for my family. And I've got a ranching family near Cold Springs, Texas, in my district, Pat Snook. So she and her family, they've gone to the bank 3 times to borrow money, to pay the death tax, just to keep their family farm in their business. It's time, it really is time for all that to end. And so now with the White House, the Senate, and the House coming together around these ideas, we've taken, I think, a real significant step in delivering bold reform for the American people. And I think releasing yesterday was a good omen, maybe a great omen for us moving forward. So after all, yesterday marked the 31-year anniversary of when the Senate passed the final tax reform bill in 1986, officially sending it to President Reagan's desk. So I was taking a look, and in a statement that day, President Reagan said, "Today's historic vote on tax reform marks the last legislative hurdle for the American people who finally have a tax code they can be proud of. One that's fair, simpler for most people, one that encourages growth, and that is pro-family." So like President Reagan in 1986, President Trump fully supports the unified approach that we are taking this week. And working together, I'm confident we're going to get tax reform to his desk this year. But then we certainly, though, have legislative hurdles to overcome before then. And in the immediate term, where we turn now is passing the budget that provides a runway for us to land tax reform on. And I can tell you the tax reform plane won't take off till we're assured there's a runway for us to land it on. And from there, members of the Ways and Means Committee and Senate Finance, as we work and pivot to the budget, our committee is going to work to craft tax reform legislation focused on reaching the goals in the framework. And as we do that, I always want to make this point. This is not our tax code. It belongs to the American people. For the first time maybe in your life, you got to have a real say in how you're taxed. So as we move forward, continuing to fill out and drive the details of the framework, we will continue to listen to our businesses, large and small, to our families, large and small. And we're going to continue to reach out and listen to our Democratic colleagues, who in our discussions over the last year and the outreach we've done in the House with our centrist Democrats, as we look to find common ground, I'm convinced there is. They want a strong middle-class tax cut, so do we. They want to stop seeing jobs moving overseas. They want to have a tax code that starts to bring them back, so do we. And they want tax reform to help move us toward a balanced budget, not away from it. Well, so do we. So we're going to continue to work with those, and we've made it very clear, and I've made it very clear, if you're serious about lowering taxes, growing the economy, growing paychecks, we're serious about working with you. So let me finish with this. You in the business community, you've got a crucial role to play as well. In fact, without your leadership, as CEOs, without your personal leadership in tax reform, it's not likely to happen. You have to be our partners in this effort to continue to, one, bring us the ideas that create the most pro-growth tax reform we can, but also make the case to your workers, to your customers, to your communities, to this country as well. And you've done that again today, leading an effort with over 200 business associations, stepping up strongly and urging the House and Senate to pass a budget now so we can get to tax reform. Suzanne, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. As you mentioned, we are committed to working with you, the Chamber, and our businesses to seize this in a bold way that I think the American people are just starving for. So with that, I'm happy to take any easy questions you may have on tax reform. Thanks. Yeah.
The chairman's got a few minutes for questions, so we don't want to keep him very long. So if you can get your questions ready, they'll bring around a mic to you, but I'll get the process started with hopefully an easy one. You talked a little bit about the next steps in the process, passing a budget resolution, releasing a chairman's mark. One step that hasn't gotten as much of attention, but I think is going to be pretty important to the business community, is how we get into the technical aspects of the transition rules, especially for those base broadening provisions. Can you talk a little bit about how you envision that process from the Ways and Means Committee perspective and how business can engage?
Yes, so one, you've been incredibly constructive already. So here's the good news. We've been working Ways and Means Committee because of my predecessors, Paul Ryan, now our Speaker, and Dave Camp from Michigan. We've been working now 6 years to be ready for this moment. And through that period, our business community, large and small, has weighed in on a number of those provisions. So one, we're incredibly more knowledgeable today than when we began the process, but more work needs to be done. And those transition rules, Neil, as you know, is incredibly important. So we want to move from this old clunker of a tax car that cannot compete around the world to a new model that frankly can keep up or exceed any of the newer models on the road today around the world. But that transition to that new car matters. And so one, we've always already engaged on how we do that. Secondly, as we fill in the details of the framework and get ready for that Ways and Means comprehensive bill, we're going to be reaching out to have industry test drive some of these provisions and the transition rules, A, to get the policy right, and B, that words matter in the tax code. And so we have to make sure that we're getting the technical drafting of this right as well. We're Republicans. You know, we want to improve this at every step in the way in tax reform, especially because we know it's just critical we get it right.
Perfect. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience today? We have one right back here. I apologize, I can't see with the lights. If you can introduce yourself and who you're with.
JT Young with Ford Motor Company. We really appreciate your analogy about test drives and a new car. In fact, we are hoping that that new car will be a Mustang GT. We noticed when you were mentioning provisions that would be specially protected, R&E was one in the tax credit. And as you know, R&E expensing has been treated differently in some other plans. Could you give us any insight into how you envision R&E expensing to be treated?
Yes, so I don't want to get ahead of our committee in this area, but I'll just tell you, research and development tax credit and research and development expenditures are extremely important. We know our competitors with innovation boxes and patent boxes are driving those rates in the single digits. We're not going to be able to do that. So we're just driving the overall rate down as far as we can. So without getting ahead of my committee, I'll just tell you those are incredibly important provisions to be able to drive innovation. In the country that wins innovation, wins, just wins. So we think those are really extremely important incentives. So thank you.
Another question. Right here, yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Larry Cam with Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. The framework briefly mentions retirement security. Could you speak to how those may be treated in the legislative language that may be coming? In particular, could you speak to employee stock ownership plans?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, we're not a nation of savers. We need to be. And so both lowering the rates at every level, protecting more of the first dollars is very helpful. We want to make sure that our tax rates incentivize more savings and more investment, and then you keep more of it as you do. It's been a bit shocking to learn how little we save as a nation and how far up the income level before people start to get serious. It is a huge problem. We can do better. And so we are striving toward lowering the rates, creating more user-friendly retirement vehicles, simpler, easier to offer, whether you're a business or you're trying to do it. We are protecting current incentives for tax deductibility, tax-free savings in. We know we have in America, we have a lot of sort of max super savers. So we think too we can encourage more of that. So on the retirement security side, we want to make some meaningful improvements. But then on issues you sort of finish with ESOPs and all. So this is what a wonderful, structure for business and capital. I mean, it really makes every worker there an owner of the business in an extremely popular way, or in an important way. And so we're going to continue to encourage that form of business structure where it fits, where it works for those industries. And I'll finish with this. I used to thought ESOPs were sort of a Midwestern creature, because it seemed like that's where the members who were most involved and most knowledgeable had no clue how important it was across the country, including in our own backyard, how crucial a structure that was. So we're going to do more to encourage it.
These folks are running their businesses
It's
that they
so
own,
cool,
right?
Yeah, no, they are all in. They're all owners and they know it. They follow that bottom line. They talk to me about regulation and tax rates and, you know what I mean? all those important things. So yeah, it's everyone's got a skin in the game in a positive way.
That's great. I think we have time for one more question before the chairman has to get going. We have one final question for him. If not, I'll just say, what is the one thing you'd like this group to know? You heard Suzanne. We're all in. We want to help. We want to get tax reform across the finish line. How can we help make that happen?
Neil, I think the most important thing is to recognize
that we can't keep everything in the current tax code and lower the rates for everybody. We can't, so you know our goal. We want a tax code built for growth, and we want one that leapfrogs America into that lead pack and keeps us here. So we can't keep everything in the current tax code and do that. And so what I hope you'll do is work with us to find both, keep the provisions that are critical to growth and customers and clients in your business, and also recognize that we will make some adjustments on other provisions in order to lower those rates. Continue to work with us, constructive way, look at the full package when it's done, continue to give us your improvements, because again, at every step in this process, we're going to continue to improve this tax code, but we're going to need our businesses to be our partners as we do that.
Well, we'll be there. We're your partners. Congratulations on a great rollout yesterday. Thanks for being here today, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it. Thank you.